Hi, folks. How's it going, everyone? Make sure to check in. We'll drop a link in the chat here. Hi, Shamarie. Let's see. Okay, how's it going, y'all? Welcome to Global Hack Week, Career Week, Day 2. I see folks joining into the stream from all around the world. Glad to have you all here. Please check in if you have not already. I dropped a link in the chat. So we've got a great workshop in store for you today, and we're going to be building on more complex cloud applications with Defang. If you have not already heard of Defang, check them out. We have streams that they've done at previous Global Hack Weeks, and they're a great platform to help you develop, deploy, and debug open source applications. But you'll learn all about them and more in today's session with our special guest from Defang. So without further ado, I hope you all will join me in welcoming Leo.
Hey, everybody. We're back.
Hey,
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
So yeah, hi everybody. So for me, the music is still running. Is that anybody else's, or is it something on my machine that's happening? Oh, there we go. That's better. Thanks. Cool. Yeah. So thanks everybody. Yesterday I had the beginner workshop. So for anybody that joined there, you got your hands dirty with the Defang tool and deployed something small. Today it's going to be a bit more intense. So today is going to be all about how to level up your skills and start working on real applications, the next big thing. And we'll be deploying to our own cloud account. We'll be hooking up a domain name, database, cache, all of that stuff. See how much we can get done in an hour. Is going to be intense. So in the chat, there's a link to the slides that I'll be using. So you can also, I'll be opening them now. That's great. Yeah. So this is our homepage, and the slides I'll be using are here, defanglabs.github.io/workshops, and then the workshop you want is the advanced one. Cool. Exactly, the link is in the chat. Check it out. So who is this workshop for? So this is all about leveling up your skills and get ready to build more complex cloud applications. So we'll take a complex application, one of the more complex samples that we have, and we'll deploy that. And then finally, we'll hook up our own domain and make it a thing. Okay, so let's get started. First, maybe no need to say this, why bother deploying? You can build anything you want on your local computer, but you want to be able to share your project and have other people use it. So that's why you want to deploy. You have to figure it out eventually. When you build websites or you build web applications, a lot of them will never leave your computer. That is true. A lot of those projects, God knows I have a lot of them, but eventually you want to deploy it. So let's learn those skills early so we know what we're building for. And then finally, if you get your own domain name and you can start building your brand, build your company even. And yeah, I think that is very satisfying. So I'm going to be going pretty quickly to this one. This is kind of the workshop that I did yesterday. So deploying a project to the Defang playground. The playground is all about getting your hands dirty, getting started, getting familiar with the tool, the Defang tool, getting familiar with cloud. So let's show you what that looks like. So this is something you can follow along. Let's go. So we have our Defang samples on our home page. So if you go to the home page, this is the home page. Click this button, defang.io. Click this button to jump to the samples. We type a simple sample that deploys fast, for example, this one. And then here, it has the command line, how to use the CLI, but we'll do one-click deploy. So let's try that. That'll jump you to this page where you need to log in. So we'll log in with your GitHub account. So press that button. I'm already logged in. Otherwise, if you're not logged in yet, then you'll get that GitHub message that do you trust this application, etc. And we get back into GitHub to make a copy, our own copy of this sample. So I pick the Next.js sample. That's why it starts with this name. I'll go to my own organization. Oh, I already have one. So I'll just change that name real quick. And we press create. This is going to clone, make a copy of that sample in my own account. So that is what you're looking at now. So this is my account. Let me zoom in one notch. This is the sample that I just cloned. And you'll see right away, it starts an action that starts a deployment to the playground. So now the playground, that is what you'll end up seeing in the portal. Go back to the portal. You see here playground projects. My Next.js 2 project is now visible. You can see it's build provisioning. That means that it's about to build. We create a URL for you. This doesn't work yet because you can see it's still red, it's still pending. But once that's done, we can deploy this project. Once we're done with this project, we can delete it using defang down. We do need the CLI for that, so we'll have to install that next. I'm not going to wait for this. Try this out on your own time. Pick any sample you want, deploy it, and check it out. So there's a few ways now. Once you have a sample deployed to the playground, you can edit it in GitHub. You can use github.dev, which is a Visual Studio Code in your browser. You can use code spaces, which is basically your own virtual machine with a Visual Studio Code environment in there, and it has the Defang CLI already deployed. You can monitor in the portal, and finally tear down, which is CLI. So we're going to do a lot of stuff today. So let's jump to the next level. So the playground is cool. You get a URL. You can even hook up your own domain name. So if you have a domain name, you can add that to your project, and you can deploy with your own domain name, even in the playground. But in the end, it's a playground. It's not meant for production applications. In fact, we'll tear it down after a week. A lot of people, they'll deploy something, they deploy something else, and they forget about it. And so we'll tear down your project after a week. You can deploy again, or you can, deploy every week if you want to keep it up and running. But it's really to show you this is just for playing. The real power of the Defang tool is to deploy to your own account. So that's what we'll be doing today. So let's see in the chat how many people are familiar with AWS. Yes, Akshat, I just did a very quick recap of what we talked about yesterday. Go to the playground, tear down, edit, watch yesterday's stream for more details. Today we'll go to deploy to AWS. So Defang has AWS and DigitalOcean right now. We're working very hard on Google and on Microsoft Azure support. So watch our repository, our Discord closely. We're releasing information around that shortly. So today we'll be using AWS. It's very popular. A lot of people use it, especially for your job. A lot of companies use AWS. So it's very good to get familiar with the platform. So let's get started there. Before we can deploy to AWS, we need to set up AWS credentials. So to do that, we'll have to go to our to the AWS portal. I have here a button ready to go, but to tell people where that is, that's awsamazon.com. And then here you can create an account if you don't have one yet. Or you can jump right into the console. And I was already logged in, so I'm here looking at my AWS console. And what we'll do is create credentials. To deploy something, our deployment tool needs to know how to connect to AWS, how to have permission to do anything in our AWS account. So we'll go to IAM, the account management dashboard. And here we'll create a user. And we'll give that user a name. So I'll call that user, I can call it Defang CLI to make that clear what it's used for. I don't have any groups yet, so I'll attach a policy directly. And for this user, I'll give it administrator access to my account. So again, people that are joining, we are in the AWS console, and we create a user specifically for the CLI. We give it administrator access and press next, and we create that user. Here we go. And now for this user, we will create credentials. So we create a set of security credentials, an access key. Here we go. We plan to use it from the CLI. And we press next. So a description of the access key. Again, this is going to be the Defang CLI. And here we have access key and secret access key. So I'm not going to show you mine. So I'll copy the access key. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be exporting those keys in our shell. So the black screen is the shell. We used it yesterday as well. This is where the Defang CLI will be used. So we'll export the access key, AWS access key. That is this one. And then I'll copy the other one, but I will do that off screen, if you forgive me. AWS secret access key. Give me a second. So let me link to the documentation so people know what's going on here. All right, so this is an example from AWS. I'll share this link for people. Let me paste this. What is AWS used for? So AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's a cloud provider. So they have computer servers all over the world, in every country almost. And you can rent those computers. You don't actually have to, have a computer yourself. You pay AWS for the resources that you use. So if you use very few resources, they have even a free tier, you end up paying nothing. If you use bigger computers, more memory, more CPU, you end up paying every month. If you use more fancy features, like you use a database, or you use like some of their AI features, that can get very expensive. So always be very cognizant of the fact that you are paying for those resources. Even if maybe nobody's going to your website, and you might still be paying for them. So be very careful. So we'll have to tear down whatever we do. Anyway, we are doing these things, and we also set up our region. AWS has, like I said, all over the world has data centers, and we'll have to tell which data center to use. I'm in Canada. I'll be using the Canadian region to do that. So here we go. I'm back in my console. I have done the exports that are suggested here. I haven't exported the region yet, so let me do that. AWS region. I am in Canada, so that would be CA Central 1. And the next step to do is to install our the Defang CLI if you haven't done that already. So if you are in the portal, oh, accidentally closed that. Oh, so by the way, our earlier project is up, but I'll be tearing that down because we're not doing Playground today. We are installing the Defang CLI, so you can get that from the portal or from our homepage. You install the CLI using any of these installers. I'll be using the shell installer. So copy paste that, click into your terminal. This will install the latest version. We released a new version yesterday, so 0.6.5 is very new. And here we are. Now we have Defang ready to go. Is there a specific CLI for Defang update? So Defang upgrade is a command that will tell you how to upgrade your CLI. And basically, it will just tell you, depending on how it was installed the first time, it will tell you how to upgrade. So if you use brew, it will tell you to use brew upgrade. If you use the shell like I did, it will tell you to just do that again, etc. So it's smart enough to tell you how to upgrade the CLI itself. It doesn't actually do it. You have to do it because it's going to make changes to your computer. So you just follow the instructions. Cool. So now Defang new to start a new project. As like yesterday, we can start a project from scratch using an AI prompt, or we can pick a project from a list of samples. You can filter these. So we'll be using Python today. Python is very popular language, especially with AI. A lot of the AI tools are written in Python. So I think it's worth knowing at least a little bit of Python. You can also see we have a bunch of AI samples here. This is implicit, which is a machine learning algorithm, an open AI sample. We'll be using Django channels, Redis, Postgres. So Redis is a very popular cache, open source. Postgres is a very popular database. So we'll be using that. I'll put that in the folder with the same name. Cool, Shamari, thanks for your feedback. Yep. And so the sample gets copied to my local computer, and here we have the editor, Visual Studio Code open. So a lot of our samples, they come with a dev container. If you're familiar with dev container, it will actually is an environment that has everything you need, a virtual environment that you can open and get started right away. It has the Defang CLI, everything in there. I'll just use Visual Studio Code on my local machine. The dev container is also on your local machine, but I'll just be using the regular Visual Studio Code. Always smart to check the README. Every project has some requirements. For example, this project uses some parameters that we have to set, some environment variables that we have to set. So always read the README and check what this project needs. Compose file. So we'll see that this project has 3 services. So it's one of the more complex services. It has a backend called app, which connects to a database. It has a Redis cache, and it has the database itself. So one thing we can do now is actually test this project locally using Docker. So because Defang is compatible with Docker, if you use Docker, if you're already familiar with Docker, feel free to continue to use it for local development And then when it's ready to go, you use Defang to deploy. So what I'll do is Docker compose up. I know this is going to fail because I can already see, you can see here, there's a bunch of variables that don't have a value. We will have to give these a value. The README also talks about that, right? So let's do what the README says. So the secret key for the Django application, we can generate it using Python. So let's copy paste that, see if that command works. Oh, I don't have Python because on the Mac that is actually called Python 3. Oh, I have to, of course, you have to install all the dependencies if you want to do that. How about I just make a secret key like this for now, just for local testing. And I also make a Postgres password. This is the password that is given to the backend, so it can connect to the database. So it's going to be a unique password. You will want something stronger in the cloud, but this is just for local development. So I'm not actually writing this down. I'm just doing export, so it's only in my local shell. Docker compose up. Oh, I must be missing something. Let's have a look. Password authentication failed. This is because I was already running it earlier. So I'll let me remove everything I had before. Oh. Yeah. Here we go. So cool. So it seems Docker Compose Up is happy. It's ready to go. And we can have a look at that application. Oh, did I type the wrong number? Maybe. Oh, I had two slashes. Is that the problem? Yeah, so you can see that it's being connected, but then it gets 2 slashes. Okay, so I'm not gonna dig into Docker problems because that's not what this workshop is about. But yeah, you can use Docker to run your application locally, and at least you can see whether everything is working as intended. We'll be deploying today, so let's get started with that. So I have Defang going. I'm in the project folder, the Django project that I use Defang new to create a copy on my local computer. And now I'm going to do Defang compose up, but I want to go to my own cloud account. So I want to make sure that I have my AWS access key, etc. configured. And you can see this is the one that I copy pasted from the AWS browser console, and I already exported it. I also have exported the region, so I can have a look here. I'm going to Canadian data center. I'll do Defang compose up, and I'll explicitly tell Defang, don't go to the playground, go to AWS. So this is the key difference to playground versus AWS. We tell Defang to use the AWS provider. So let's get it going. Okay, so this makes sense. The Defang CLI says, hey, this project needs the following parameters, and you have not set these parameters. Okay, thanks for the reminder. So again, we use the Defang CLI. We're still using AWS because these parameters will be set in AWS, not the playground. If you already set them in the playground, your AWS account doesn't know that. So we'll have to set them in our AWS account using -- provider, and then we'll set them one by one. So Postgres params, you have to read the README, is supposed to be to tell the backend to connect securely. So let's see if we can find that string in the file here. Oh, it's in the compose file. So in the compose file, we'll have some documentation that says what to do here. So if you use BYOD, set Postgres params to SSL mode equal require. So let's do that. There we go. And then the other parameter that we need is secret key. So we'll set secret key to, again, I'll just pick something. You will want to use the Python script that we have in the README to create that key. And then the Postgres password, we'll set that to, oh, did I already set that from the looks of it? Oh, I'm not supposed to do export. I'm supposed to do Postgres config set. So we do Postgres password, and we set that to, let's make it something a bit more fancy. Here we go. To update the deployed value, do Defang provider AWS compose up. Let's go. Here we go. So now what's happening? Okay, somebody has a networking error. Yeah, sorry, Evotech. I don't know how to help you with that. Try to, close Twitch and enter again, or I'm not sure how you're following this stream. Sorry to hear that. Okay, just to recap what's happening here. We created in AWS credentials for the Defang CLI. We have exported those credentials in our local shell. We've also downloaded the Defang CLI with the shell script. Then I did Defang config set with -- provider AWS to create required config values in my AWS account. And you'll actually be able to go to AWS and see those values. So we had to do that for 3 values. This project needs 3 values, right? It needs the progress password. You can see them being empty in the compose file, secret key, and it needs this Postgres params. So we did config set to export those values, not in our shell, but in our cloud account. And then we did Defang provider AWS again, but with compose up to actually deploy this project. Again, Docker compose up, you can run it on your local machine. Defang compose up deploys to the playground. Defang compose up with provider AWS deploys to your AWS account. And we can actually follow along in the AWS console. Let's go back here. This is where we created the access keys. I'm still in the console. So, for example, System Manager. So if we go to Canada, System Manager, here we should have those config settings that we set. Here we go. So this exactly the 3 that we created using the Defang CLI can be seen here in the AWS console. See the Postgres params, Postgres password, and the secret key. If we go to Elastic Container Service, I have these services pinned. AWS has like hundreds of services. So the ones that I use, I have these pinned, with these little stars. So if you type it in, Elastic Container Service, yeah, you can press a star and it ends up there for quick access. And so here we see 2 projects happening. We have the Defang CD. So CD is the continuous deployment service that Defang CLI creates. This is the service that is actually running code that manages your cloud account. You can see there is a task running in that service right now. 1 task running, which is our deployment, the one that the CLI is looking at, exactly this one. Yeah. And then there's a new cluster called Defang Django Channel Redis Postgres Beta Cluster. So this is the project that we're deploying. There's nothing running yet. It's still being deployed. There's nothing there. And so at some point, we'll see here the different services appearing. So we can also, we know we have a database, so we can check out RDS, which is the Amazon, the managed database service. And we should see here a database appear, if that is all correct. Oh, that is silly, because this project was initially deployed to the playground. It was not using RDS. So you can see here, the CLI gives us a warning. It says the Redis service is a stateful service that will lose data on restart. Use a managed service instead. And it gives the same warning for Postgres. So Postgres is a stateful service that will lose data on restart. When you have a stateful service, that's a service that has state, like a database, stuff that you want the application to remember. When that service restarts, it loses that information. And so this is what the warning is referring to. So in Defang, we have two extensions that tell the CLI to use managed services. So we'll uncomment those, and then eventually we'll have to deploy again. So we'll wait for this deployment to finish, and then we'll deploy again. Meanwhile, this should still work. So we can go to Elastic Container Services, and we will see slowly the services appear in our cluster. Oh, here we go. You can see there's two services here. We have a Postgres service here and a Redis one. Again, these are not managed services in the sense that they manage their state. So if these services are stopped, for example, I press delete or stop, the data will be gone. So this is great for testing. This is going to be much cheaper than spinning up a database. But always remember, these are running in a container. Yeah, so we are now waiting for the application to start up. One thing people note is Docker Compose was much faster. Defang Compose takes a long time. That is because it's the first time we're deploying this project to the AWS account. A lot of resources will have to be created. You don't see them all here, but if you go, for example, to EC2, we will see there's going to be a load balancer. See here, this is a load balancer for our application. We're going to have target groups eventually, not yet. We're going to have security groups. You can see here the security groups are getting created. So the first time you deploy a project to AWS, there's something like 50 to 100 of these AWS resources are getting created. And so this is why the first time it will be much slower. The second time, these are already there, and maybe it's just an update to your application. You do a compose up after you make a change, and that will be all much faster. All right. So while we wait, any questions, folks? I know there's a lot of content here. There's a lot of stuff to keep in mind. Watch the stream, watch it back. There will be a recording of this. Join our Discord. We have, we have a whole team there answering questions. I also want to go back to our slides real quick. Yeah, so this is the step where we are at, right? So in our slides, we're doing the Defang Compose up to deploy to AWS. I had just changed that to say the -- provider to make it very explicit. So that's what we're doing now, and we're waiting for that to complete. Oh, we're getting the same error that we got earlier, so it's probably the same problem. When we did Docker Compose, we got an error. Okay, anyway, we were planning to deploy again. Oh, okay. It's because we did this SSL mode required, but we're not deployed to RDS yet. So I do compose up again, because remember, we uncommented these two lines And so now we'll be deploying to RDS. You can follow the logs, right? So if you press V, you'll see detailed logs of what the deployment is doing. Let's have a look at the application while it's deploying. This application is much more complex than what we deployed yesterday. Yesterday, we deployed our Next.js application, just a static site. You can add it. Of course, Next.js doesn't have to be a static site. You can have there some more complex interactions. Use AI to add features to your application. This is a chat application, so it's much more complicated. We actually have a backend that is connecting to a database, creating chat rooms, and then using Redis to communicate between those chat rooms. So we even have admin models here. This is the database model that you're looking at here. The database contains users, messages, rooms. So, for chat messages, that's the fields there. We have WebSockets for real-time updates between your browser and the other people's browsers. So this is the secret key. There's always a secret key that is built in, that is not secure, but we override it using the config setting that we did. Yeah. So yeah, let's wait for it to be up and running. Here we see the deployment running. This is the second deployment, so it should be much faster. Yeah, let's have a look what it's like. So for now, something to note, people, the portal only shows playground projects. So you deploy a project to AWS, our portal doesn't know about it. We are working on a feature to at least keep track, so you know, oh, what did I deploy where? So we're working on that the next few weeks. But for now, the projects in the playground portal only show playground projects. So to see anything about your AWS project, you have to go to your AWS console. So, and that is this one here. I'm in the wrong region. See, if you pick the wrong region here, I picked US West 2, which is in Oregon. We have a lot of projects using Defang deployed there. I'll go back to my Canadian data center. Oh, I got logged out. Log back in. Go to Canada. And here our deployment here seems to be running. We have the application and two services. Again, these services are containers. We will be replacing these with managed services in the deployment that is now running. So while this runs, you will see that these two stateful services like the Postgres database and the Redis cache will get replaced. So yeah, who is familiar with AWS to this extent? Who has deployed something to AWS before? And what tools did you use? Have any of you used tools like Terraform or Pulumi or the CDK? What tools do you use when you deploy something to the cloud, apart from Defang, of course? Anybody? Cool. Well, we'll just be waiting for this database to get created. This is what I'm looking at here. See, we got a database in RDS. We have now a Postgres service database. Yeah, and once that's done, we'll also get a cache, so we can also follow that along. Everything that the Defang is doing, we can just follow along in the dashboard. Oh, here we go. One cache being created. Yeah, again, same problem as before. This is the first time we're deploying the database and the cache. That will be much slower than subsequent times. So let's wait for that to happen. What are people looking forward to deploying? Has anybody any ideas in mind? Working on something? What are you guys working on? While we wait, I can tear down this playground project because we're not using it anymore. So I can just copy paste that. There we go, and it's gone. So just to show you guys what the application we are deploying. So I got what I did. I did Docker Compose up. Again, the first time I did it, it failed. Remember, it got the double slash. I did it again. So Docker Compose up in that same folder. And then I go to localhost 8000. And so this is the application that we're deploying to the cloud. It's a chat room application. You can create a chat room like Global Hack Week. And then that should be creating. You can see if that works. This is a Docker Compose logs, right? Then, yeah, it created a Global Hack Week chat room. And I create a name and I can send a message. Hello, does that work? Doesn't seem to work. Well, let's see if it works once it gets to the cloud. So we go back to the AWS console to check whether the database and stuff is all ready. The first time these things, they take time to deploy. Yeah, Redis is available. What about our database? Also available. Cool. So we can go check our application. Our application is failing though, and that's probably because the application started too soon. It probably started before the database was running. Let's have a look what we can do about that. Oh, here we have the error. Oh, it looks like it was already deployed. Ah, okay. Okay, so there is a Postgres service seems to have been already deployed to that same account before. Let's have a look. Django. There we go. So oh yeah, okay. So we'll have to throw this away before we can create it again. So let's just do that. And pose up again. Yeah, so these accounts, this AWS account is used a lot for testing. And so some stuff is already in there that shouldn't be in there. Or we have a bug, in which case I have to fix the bug. So Shamari says, thinking of using Defang for a hackathon project. Yeah, I think that's perfect for a hackathon project because you start your project in the playground, or use Docker Compose for local development for your hackathon, deploy to the playground, no worries. And then as your project matures, you use your same tool that you're already familiar with, the same architecture, the same code to deploy to AWS. Or we even have DigitalOcean now, so you can try deploying your project to DigitalOcean as well. DigitalOcean for small projects is cheaper than AWS. Yeah, so for hackathon, I think that's perfect. So this is a project that I built, for example, also deployed with Defang, Nounly. It's a URL shortener using using nouns instead of codes. So you put in a URL and you get a shortened URL out. Yeah, so this is a fun little project, and it's up and running in AWS now. So it's perfect, yeah, for these for that kind of thing. Yeah, and in fact, you often also get like domain names. I think even MLH has a sponsor. Last time I checked, for domain names. So if you get a domain name and you get AWS credits, that's perfect. So the domain name, we can actually get into that. How to add a domain name to your own project, because that was the last slide that I had. Oh, I see the deployment failed again. Okay, let's have a look what failed. So we can. So if you want to watch these logs, because I didn't show verbose logs, so I don't see much information now, but you can use the defang tail command to show more logs. So if I do like this, I copy paste the timestamp and use -- since, and then I do -- verbose. So now I should be able to see what went wrong there. I'm guessing it's similar than the previous error that we had. Yeah, so it's the same problem, but then for Redis, not for Postgres. So I should have noticed that. So same problem for Redis. Delete. I think there's actually probably a bug in our tool that we can fix when you go from managed to unmanaged service or back. Then you get these conflicts. So it's probably something we can fix now. Oops, I did Docker Compose up instead of Defang provider Compose up. There you go. Cool. So I think what's pretty neat is that all this complexity of domain names and load balancing and target groups and security groups is all managed by Defang, and it's all based off of this one compose file. So you have one compose file that describes your whole project, and that decides how everything ends up in the cloud. And you can make it even more complicated. So at some point, if you say, hey, I'm ready to accept more people, you can add, I was using cursor for testing, so that's why I got that prompt. You can add, hey, I need two copies of this service because I need to handle more load. Or you need more resources. You can add that too. You can say, I need 2 CPUs, or I need, 1 GB of memory. You can even write it like this, 1 GB. So all of that, by simply adding a few lines of code in your compose file, you deploy a very complex, you can deploy a very complex application that can handle millions of users. Cool. So eventually, what we'll end up with is a, I'll go here, Django again. So here you see the public domain name of the application that I'm deploying. So it's not up yet. That's because the database is still cannot be found. So we'll wait for that. Remember, we had 3 services here, and now, oh, I'm looking at the wrong cluster. Here we go. And now the service is restarting because we recreated the stateful services as managed services. Here we go. So this is now an application running in the cloud. Let's see if we can share this. There you go. So I shared the link. This is the same application that was running on the local computer with Docker Compose, but it's now running in the cloud. It's using a URL that we created. And yeah, we can make a chat room. This is now global for everybody. Before, it was just my computer, right? So yeah, if you join the GHW chat room, then you can chat with us, and can probably have a lot of people chat at the same time, because this is now a real application. You're using a real managed database and a real managed cache. So no longer a toy project. So yeah, check it out. And the last thing to do is to hook this up with a domain name. So why don't I do that real quick? So I have some domains that I'm not using in Porkbun. Here's a domain registrar. So let me use that. Oh, wrong password. So why don't I? Yeah, here. Cool. I make a domain name. I make it point to the domain name that Defang created for me. So I'll do chat.ghwdemo.xyz, which will go to our deployed application. Okay, add that record. So that should be live now. We go back to the compose file, and we say to use a domain name. Here we go. And oh, that's not the domain name. The name is chat.ghwdemo.xyz. There we go. And now we'll compose up again. People actually chatting? Am I the only one? go to the link and join the GHW chat room. Let's see if this works. So we're at this slide now. We have 5 minutes left. You can see the link in the chat. Yeah, so if you wait, of course I can use Nounly, which is perfect for this. So yeah, Nounly stage. Type in Nounly stage, you end up on the same chat room. I can also show, if I log in with a second browser, I can show you that it works. Hey, cool. Somebody's there, anonymous. Oh, my service is down. That is because I'm redeploying, right? So because I'm redeploying. So another important thing that I haven't mentioned yet, when you do deployments, Defang Compose Up has this flag called deployment mode. If you, by default, cool. Thanks for trying the chat. Yeah. So by default, we're doing development mode. Development mode is that each time you deploy, we take down the application that is there before we put up the new one. So you always know which version you're talking to. But that's very bad, of course, that you make a little update and then your application is down for like 10 seconds before it's up again. So if you are going to deploy a real application, you want to use deployment mode production. What that does, it keeps the application up and running, and at the same time puts up the new version, and then it flips them up. So your old application is always running, your new application is deployed side by side. You have two copies for a short time, and then only when the new one is working, the old one is torn down. Of course, for a while you'll be paying double, right? For those 10, 20 seconds, you pay double because you have two copies of your application. But the upside is your application is never down. So that is an important thing to note. The other thing, after you set the domain name, you have to generate certificates for your domain name. That is called Defang Cert Generate. And so that is provider AWS again. And so if you don't have certificates created, then your domain name will result in an error in the browser. And that's probably what we'll see soon if we go there. Let's see. Okay, so the CLI says that our DNS is good, and now it's creating those certificates. That might take a while. I should have started this 5 minutes earlier. We're now close to the end of. Oh, wow, perfect timing. We have 1 minute to go. So now we have chat.ghw demo XYZ. We can go to our GHW, and there we go. And this is now the same application running in our own domain name, chat.ghw.demo.xyz. And it's already can handle thousands of users. And if I add more replicas, I add more memory, I add more CPU, I can handle even more users. So this whole thing is running in the cloud like a real application should. Just remember .xyz. Yeah, you're almost there. Chat. I'll keep this up and running for a while. People can check it out and play with it. There you go. I've shown you, pasted in the chat, the URL. So I think this is really cool. We went from a toy on a local computer using Docker Compose Up. We deployed to the playground, but then we deployed to the AWS account, and we have it now up and running with our own domain name, all hooked up, and it's all secure. We have a TLS certificate, so you can see that here. We have a secure. The connection is secure. So, but yeah, thanks everybody. I know this is a lot. This is way more complicated than yesterday's, but we are building real cloud applications. This could be the next big thing, you know. So very excited to see what people end up building, end up deploying, and join our Discord and share what you've learned, share what you've built. So that's my final message. Check out our other projects, our other samples. Important, when you deploy to your own cloud, you are paying. So make sure you tear down, use Defang Compose down to tear down your project. I'm going to keep it up for a bit so people can see what was built while they rewatch the stream, and then join our Discord community. So thanks everybody. It's been a very, very busy hour.
Thanks so much, Leo. This is great. And as you mentioned, you're in the Discord. I'm dropping a link in here. The Discord, so everyone, if you have any additional questions or if you followed along and built with Leo, go ahead and drop what you built in the Discord, and Leo will be there along with other members of the team to answer any questions and stuff that y'all might have. Thanks, Leo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Take care. Also, we are going to be kicking off today in Global Hack Week soon. So after this stream ends, feel free to join us there. I'll see you all in a bit. Bye.